And, the next story actually takes this a step further because I have been wondering what the effect and impact of a TikTok ban would be, what that would look like. And then if it were to span into the other Chinese applications, technology companies, if it were to touch Tencent, if it were to touch WeChat, what would the consequences be for companies like Apple? And we spoke about how it might be possible that the iPhone could be doomed in China if anything were to happen to these core apps, these important apps, to the Chinese public. And then I started to wonder if Trump could even touch what the App Store looks like in China, because we already know it doesn't look exactly the same as it does in North America. Mm-hmm. There are some concessions. So the speculation started to come out that, WeChat, the absence of WeChat could significantly hurt the iPhone, as you just showcased on that article. But can Trump do the thing in the first place? And then I come upon this article. It's an exclusive from Reuters. A U.S. ban on TikTok could cut it off from app stores and advertisers. Okay, so we get into the nitty gritty. We get some language as to what this order looks like here. And this is really interesting, okay? I'm going to do the quote for you. Prohibited transactions may include, for example, agreements to make the TikTok app available on app stores, purchasing advertising on TikTok, and accepting terms of service to download the TikTok app onto a user device. That's wide open. That's wide open. Transactions. We were all wondering, what is this transaction thing? Is it a financial transaction? Is it an information transaction? Is it any type of transaction at all? Prohibited transactions may include agreements to make the TikTok app available on app stores, period. Apple has an app store. Apple is an American company. If you remember what happened with Huawei, the U.S. was able to impose sanctions on companies that were not based in the U.S. but wanted to continue to do business in the U.S. Companies like TSMC and others. Mm-hmm. I'm starting to think there's a way that he could keep these apps out of the App Store globally because of the base of these app stores existing and being serviced and essentially transacting from American soil or with American headquarters. Transacting. And I'm going to go to the next part of it, which is, let's say even he can't do that. Let's say he can't do that. Let's say the transaction piece from that standpoint on the existence within the App Store is limited to the banning only within the United States. Well, what about this one? Purchasing advertising on TikTok. Well, where would those advertisers come from? The United States? Presumably for that market, for the American market, if the thing has any potential to hang around. Mm-hmm. If you could prohibit the purchasing of advertising, you'd nerf the company anyways. If you can prohibit American firms from transacting with TikTok in that fashion, you're taking in a tremendous amount of potential revenue right off the table.
Yeah, advertisers pay the bills.
Pay the bills.
Yeah.
It's the content business. So this looks wider reaching. And again, could be interpreted in a number of ways, and it's not implemented. There was a timeline on it. It was 45 days. We didn't know how it was going to be enforced and implemented. But I'll tell you what, that's a transaction between Apple, an American company, and TikTok, a ByteDance Chinese company. Whether it's in the App Store in the US or anywhere else, it's a transaction between those two companies. There's a benefit to both parties inside of that transaction. So this could be huge. This could be way bigger than we ever imagined. If all of a sudden all these Chinese apps get sucked out of the American app stores, regardless of where they're doing business, the international potential, the Chinese potential for American brands, out the window. Mm-hmm. Now, it's important for us to also say, there's only one American brand doing business in China. Right? It's not Google. It's not Facebook. Samsung's basically out of there, and they're not American, but Korean. This would massively be hurtful to Apple. And we've heard speculation somewhere in the neighborhood of 30% of their business
Right.
might be in China and through the App Store in China.
Yeah.
They've invested there where others were a little bit more, I don't know. Or they weren't allowed in the first place, whatever it happens to be. So this is big stuff, really big stuff and massive implications. Imagine a future in which the iPhone has no business in China and Chinese phones don't have any business elsewhere. I mean, you're really creating those imaginary lines that go around these places. They start to turn into technological barriers.
Yeah. Barriers in the digital space.
Digital
not just
barriers.
physical.
The new type of Great Wall.
Ooh.
Well, they
Scary
already did it
stuff.
right with the Great Firewall, but this is even another level when you start talking about trade and trade in the digital sense. It's massive stuff.